Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a journey, really a wild ride, to the absolute outer boundaries of chemistry, physics, and, well, reality as we understand it. We're going to look way past that familiar chart hanging on your old classroom wall and step into a world of theoretical physics, intense international races, and some truly mind-bending phenomena. It all really starts with one incredibly profound question. Where does the periodic table actually end? I mean, does this parade of elements, starting with hydrogen, the simplest atom of the universe, does it ever actually stop? Or does it just go on forever, limited only by human engineering, our patience, and, let's be honest, our experimental budgets? To figure this out, we first need to make sure we're completely aligned on what we're actually looking for here.
Okay, let's dive into this. To understand where the table ends, we just need a quick baseline on what an element actually is, which all comes down to its atomic number. That proton count, 1 for hydrogen, 6 for carbon, 79 for gold, is absolutely the single most important number in chemistry. If you change it by just one single proton, you transform the atom entirely into a completely different element with entirely different properties. It's literally that sensitive. Now, historically, this whole thing was a game of discovery. Back in 1869, Dmitri Mendeleev organized the known elements and brilliantly left these little gaps for elements he just knew had to exist in nature but hadn't been discovered yet. And for a century, we basically just filled those gaps. But starting in the 1940s, right around the Manhattan Project, a massive shift occurred. We stopped just digging elements out of the ground and actually started manufacturing them, literally atom by atom, in laboratories. This incredible era of creation led us all the way to 2016, when element 118 oganesson was officially confirmed. So how exactly do we push past this? Well, you can't exactly just mix two chemicals in a beaker to make a brand new element. You need a full-on nuclear reaction. Specifically, something called heavy ion fusion. First, you take a target made of an incredibly rare radioactive element. Then, you fire a beam of lighter ions at it at a huge fraction of the speed of light. The goal here is to force two atomic nuclei to crash together and fuse, overcoming what's known as the Coulomb barrier. And guys, this is mind-bogglingly difficult. Scientists run these massive particle accelerators day and night for weeks, sometimes literally months on end, firing trillions upon trillions of ions, just hoping to create and detect a single atom of a new superheavy element. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why overcoming that Coulomb barrier is so incredibly tough. Inside every single nucleus, there's this violent, microscopic battle taking place. On one side, you have the strong nuclear force. Think of it as the incredibly strong glue holding the protons and neutrons together, but it only works at super short ranges. On the flip side, you have electromagnetic repulsion. Because all protons have a positive electric charge, they aggressively repel each other. And unlike the strong force, this repulsion has an unlimited range. Every single proton is actively repelling every other proton in that nucleus. It's a constant microscopic tug of war. So the crucial point here is this. As you pack more and more protons into a newly created superheavy element, that electromagnetic repulsion grows exponentially, and eventually, it completely overwhelms the strong force. When that happens, the nucleus suffers from what physicists call spontaneous fission. It just instantly tears itself completely in two. For the absolute heaviest elements we've created, this happens in a fraction of a microsecond. The element simply rips itself apart almost the very instant it's born. But physicists do have this incredible beacon of hope. They theorize what they call an island of stability. So imagine a vast ocean of extreme nuclear instability, where elements just instantly destroy themselves. Hidden deep within that turbulent ocean, theorists predict a safe harbor, an island. According to quantum mechanics, if an atom has very specific magic numbers of protons and neutrons, its nuclear shells perfectly close up, granting it extraordinary stability. In this theoretical oasis, super-heavy elements might survive not just for microseconds, but maybe for minutes, hours, or potentially even years. Now, the anchor to this entire island of stability really relies on one massive target, the number 184. This right here is the widely predicted magic number of neutrons that could finally anchor this island. We honestly haven't been able to pack quite enough neutrons into our target in beam collisions to hit this number just yet. But as scientists have gotten closer and closer to it over recent years, creating isotopes with more and more neutrons, they've actually observed the lifespans of these atoms measurably increasing. It's happening exactly as the theory predicts, which is so exciting. And we are literally mapping this theoretical geography right now. In fact, researchers at the GSI Helmholtz Center in Germany recently mapped the shoreline of this exact island. They pulled this off by synthesizing and measuring Rutherfordium-252, which, by the way, is the shortest-lived superheavy nucleus ever precisely measured.
By finding the exact edge where stability completely falls apart on the neutron-deficient side, they are giving theoretical physicists the hard, real-world data they need to chart exactly where the true safe harbor begins and ends. This theoretical mapping has triggered a massive high-stakes international competition to synthesize elements 119 and 120. These would be the very first elements of an entirely new 8th period on the periodic table. Japan's Riken Center is aggressively pursuing element 119 using vanadium-51 beams. Over in the US, the Berkeley lab recently proved a titanium-50 approach actually works, so they're setting their sights squarely on element 120. In Russia, the Dubna lab is pushing forward with their domestic capabilities, successfully preparing berkelium targets despite significant geopolitical isolation and the breakdown of historic international partnerships. And Germany and China, they are also bringing their own world-class accelerator facilities to bear on this exact same scientific challenge. It is a full-blown global race. Now, you might be wondering, if one of these labs succeeds tomorrow, what happens? Well, they don't just get to yell out a name and print a brand new poster. There is a deeply rigorous, multi-year verification process governed by international scientific bodies. Until an element is officially confirmed by independent replication, it just receives a temporary systematic designation based on its atomic number. So right now, element 119 is officially called ununaninium. Catchy, right? Once verified, the discoverers finally earn the presumptive right to propose a permanent name, and those names usually honor distinguished scientists or locations. Think of elements like oganesson or californium.
But while we're trying so hard to build these atoms in massive Earth-bound machines, it raises a truly fascinating astrophysical question. Are they already being made out there in the cosmos? We already know that colliding neutron stars produce roughly half of all the heavy elements in the universe, things like gold and uranium, through something called the rapid neutron capture process. Theoretical models suggest that the extreme, highly neutron-dense environment of a neutron star merger might actually be perfectly capable of naturally forging superheavy elements from the island of stability, entirely without any human intervention.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happens when we push the periodic table to its absolute mathematical limits. We hit this haunting mathematical wall right at element 137. See, in a simplified mathematical model, the innermost electron of an atom needs to orbit faster and faster as the nuclear charge increases. Right around proton number 137, the math suggests that inner electron would actually need to travel faster than the speed of light, which is physically impossible. This mysterious absolute limit totally fascinated great physicists like Richard Feynman, which is exactly why element 137 is famously nicknamed Feynmanium.
But nature is always just a bit more nuanced than our simple models, isn't it? When you run those exact same relativistic calculations, but you actually account for the fact that a nucleus has a physical size and isn't just an infinitely small dot, that mathematical breakdown gets pushed a little further out. In fact, it pushes it right to this number, 173 protons. And if you could somehow, against all odds, create a nucleus with 173 protons, theoretical physics predicts something absolutely unbelievable. The electromagnetic pull would be so unimaginably intense that the vacuum of empty space itself would become unstable. It would literally spontaneously fracture, creating actual matter out of absolute nothingness. The vacuum would spit out an electron-positron pair. The electron would fall into the atom to shield the massive charge, and the antimatter positron would be violently flung outward. It's like staring into the ultimate quantum abyss. Assuming stability somehow actually permits us to go this high, what would these elements even look like? Well, a hypothetical 8th period of the periodic table would be, in a word, total chaos. It introduces an entirely new G block of elements and a massive superactinide series, which totally expands the table's shape. But more importantly, because those inner electrons are moving at near light speed, relativistic effects just completely dominate. The familiar, orderly rules of chemistry that Mendeleev first noticed, they completely break down. Electron orbitals would just jumble together unpredictably, making it incredibly difficult to even guess how these elements would actually behave in the real world.
Which ultimately leaves us with this final thought. Is the periodic table a finished chart or an active, unfinished map of reality? We simply do not know where the absolute final boundary lies. That chart hanging on the wall of your old chemistry classroom isn't a closed chapter of history. It's an active, living frontier. And right now, as we speak, scientists all across the globe are racing, atom by incredibly rare atom, to push the boundaries of matter further than humanity has ever reached. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the limits of our universe.